United Kingdom has, 40,000 plus on their watch list. That's just the extremists that are on their watch list, not the ones that haven't even caused a stir. So these are the ones that they are currently surveilling. We're not even talking about the ones they're not surveilling. Okay, welcome back to Moot Talks with Sophie and Linda. Hi, Linda, how are you?
Hi, Sophie. How are you? I'm doing well.
That's great. So today I thought we would just capture some of the things we want to talk about, and it comes off what happened just last week in Germany again. Another knife attack again. There was another knife attack today again in France. Obviously, this comes off the back of what happened in Magdeburg during the Christmas markets. We seem to be having, again, what seemed to have been quite common in around the 2000s, if you remember, and the early ones with Charlie
hmm
Hebdo and the Bataclan. And it seemed every road you went down in Europe, you had to watch for vans and cars that might run you over. So I feel like we're back there again. It dulled down for a little while and we seem to be back. And I think we should talk about what is happening in Europe. I mean, you're in France, I'm in Germany. We see what's happening in the United Kingdom with so many things happening, especially with the murder of those 3 children and the stabbings, the Southport and the subsequent grooming gang scandals. And there seems to be a problem in Europe and we have to talk about it. And I think it's important we do. I think the war or the Gaza conflict, if we can call it that, has exacerbated some of these extremisms, if you like, and they've been given a little bit of oxygen to take charge. So I think we could probably have a chat about those things today, but we'll start with some good news. Okay, let's start with some more hostages being released, which is good news. Curiously, which I saw this morning, the Israeli government was querying whether this is a breach of ceasefire because the soldiers, well, they're IDF soldiers that were released from captivity, and they were released before the civilians. So I saw some comments saying this is a breach of terms because the civilians are supposed to be released first, and instead they released the 4 IDF soldiers, the girls that were taken captive. Well, it's great for their
They,
families, but maybe
no,
fill us in some more, perhaps,
yeah,
if you've heard.
but the thing is, no, they had to release another girl, Adam Berger, I think her name is,
Mm,
the girl that plays violin, and she was with these 4 girls
I
together,
didn't.
and they separated them. So now she's all alone. First, when they're not like prisoners of war because there was no conflict on
Mm,
October 6th.
mm,
Okay, they came, these girls were in bed. They kidnapped them in pyjama. They went in the country, took them hostage. So it's not prisoners of wars,
mm,
because a prisoner of war is when if you take the enemy during
mm-hmm.
I mean, in a combat situation. There was no combat. There was no war on the 6th of October. For sure, we are happy to see, for their family. I don't know how these parents hold on for 15 months, to tell you the truth. I don't know how they did it. But what really, for me, um, is prevalent in all of that is that obscene spectacle. You know, it was a produced and staged event because you remember last week when they released the first 3 hostages and the violent mobs wanted to lynch them basically, and the Hamas uh, fighters soldiers were like trying to prevent the mob to get to touch the girls. So the first observation is that there's no genocide, there's no famine, and I don't see any humanitarian crisis. All I've seen was brand new 4x4s and jeeps, the latest smartphone, Egyptian weapons delivered by the USA, uh, well pressed uniforms. I mean, these guys a week ago were all in civilians, hiding like rats in tunnels. And suddenly, nice haircuts. I mean, the masks for sure because they're cowards and they can't show their faces. But I found the scene of yesterday because I think that it was such a bad image for Hamas, the last week
So
release of
you're
the
saying it was
hostage.
a PR failure
Yeah,
on
so
their
it was a
behalf.
PR failure. So they tried to rework their PR,
Mm,
and they made a video with these girls in the car, before they arrived to the location where they were paraded, on the stage, talking in Arabic, speaking in Arabic, where they were thanking Hamas for protecting them and for feeding them. The thing is, I have to remind Hamas that we have pictures and videos of these girls that they published. Okay, um, disheveled in their pajamas. I don't know if you remember, what's her name that I don't, that Naama Levy, the one that
Sure.
was dragged,
And she
uh,
had bloody
with
pants, bloody
bloody
stained
pants and
pants.
everything. And then they put them in fake uniforms because these are not the IDF uniforms. They had to wave and smile at mob that if given an opportunity, they would rape them, cut their throat. We know. Okay. So that was pretty obscene, I found. And the other thing that I found quite obscene is mainstream media talking about the released terrorists as hostages. Okay, like to put like some kind of moral equivalency. No, these guys got life sentences. 25 years for life sentence because they're murderers, terrorists who've murdered hundreds of people.
I
So
did see one clip where was it Mahmoud Abbas from Fatah was
yeah,
congratulating one of the prisoners for
yeah,
being released and how wonderful he was, and that particular prisoner apparently was in jail for having murdered a child.
and
That's
it's
just
not,
a
and Mahmoud Abbas is the moderate. So
what,
he's the
so
moderate.
they say.
But you know what it reminded me, the staging, because there is a link between the Nazis and the Islamists. I mean, Hitler
Well,
is one of their favorite. Hitler is,
we could talk. I think this is a great segue into the
yeah,
whole
yeah,
Elon Musk debacle and the
exactly,
who's a Nazi.
exactly. Because in 1944, under the pressure of the Danish king, I think the Red Cross finally went to visit some Jews in concentration camp to see what was their situation. And the Nazis also staged the whole thing, that the gardens, I mean, they had like made the gardens beautiful with flowers. The children had to sing and the musician, play music, cookies and candies. And when asked, I mean, whoever survived, they never had the opportunity to taste one of these candies. And most of the people who were used for this masquerade were shipped to Auschwitz a few days after and murdered. So it's the same kind of, how can you call that? Uh,
It's like a psychological PR that they're
it's
trying to
it's a
send an
yeah, yeah,
image.
but
Yeah,
but 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 you have to be such evil, to be able to even think to do something like that. It's I mean,
I think
so I
it's just a realpolitik.
no, because
It's their ends justify the means. They don't see. I don't even know if it's evil. It's just they don't see it. They don't see it.
no,
If the
no,
end, their
no,
end.
no, no. I don't think, I don't agree with you. They see it. I mean, it's not only that they see it. It's one of their tools. Okay, deception is one of their tools. So it's not this thing, but it's a propaganda stunt, and we all understood that some people would comment that, oh well, the girl looked nice and they smile and they looked good. For sure, they were smiling. They had no choice but to smile. And they were smiling for a reason, maybe because also they were once
Released,
like a few like a half an hour from being in the
free.
arms of their parents. So I wanted to say that. I mean, the takeaway from all of that, my takeaway from all of that, is that we're dealing with monsters. We have no choice but to pay a very heavy price to see our hostage come back. But the biggest takeaway from me is that the genocide narrative, the famine narrative, because not only they looked well fed, they looked even a little bit on the overweight side, and they don't seem to have problem getting, like, driving 2025 new cars. I don't see, I mean, you're talking a humanitarian crisis. Is it a joke? So that's the big takeaway. It's that the crowd and the mob that protested in support of these people and called genocide, all eyes on Rafah. I don't know if you remember, and all of that. Uh, we knew it was a PR to uh, to delegitimize Israel. We knew it, to the action of Israel. Okay, but here it was in front of everybody to see. And those who don't admit it today, we know why. We know who and we know why. And that's a segue to anyway our, I mean, you want to talk about Musk?
Well, I think it's a clear sign of holding on to clutching at the last straw that they can, and of course they will pinpoint anything they can to grab. One they have a hostility towards Musk in general because of his, I guess, allegiance with Trump. So the mainstream media had to find something to grab.
Yeah,
But I do
it's,
think
yeah.
it's the lunacy of, I mean, I will tell you how this permeated down. I'll bring it right down from the mainstream media and the social media circles right into young people in a school. The biggest, including my daughter. Now, you know, my daughter comes from a family where we are quite well spoken and well educated, and we pretty much are quite au fait with what's happening in the world. But even my own daughter came home criticizing what Elon Musk had done. And it's clear by looking at the picture. And I was just furious. I thought I taught you better than that. Did you see the full clip, or did you just catch the snippet and the sound bite that you grabbed from social media and the social contagion from all your friends at school that happened to catch on to the one narrative, which is Trump's a fascist, therefore Musk is a fascist, and his action was so. And I go,
They needed to validate their, you know, their propaganda for
oh,
years, but
but I just, the question was, though, is the voices that aren't being heard. No one is listening to the voices that they should be listening to, which is Jewish people saying, we are not stupid. We can distinguish through motive and intent what an actual Nazi salute looks like with full intention and what Musk did.
you know,
And what Musk did was not what you think it is. But it's dismissing the voices that drove me. That was just, I was just so angry.
and you know, and we should know because we know they edit sequences
Of
to
course they
fit
do.
their narrative. We know they've done it 100 times. You know, the good people thing. You remember the good people thing?
Mm.
When you watch
Mm-hmm.
the
Oh yeah,
whole,
yeah,
it's like he criticized the white supremacists, you know.
absolutely.
But you know, I love the Babylon Bee. I think we need the Babylon Bee more than ever.
Mm.
And they had an headline that I really loved, which is liberals briefly pause chanting death to Israel to call Elon Musk a Nazi.
I know it's
And it,
hilarious, right? The irony.
and it's exactly that because all the people who were like, my God, calling Elon Musk a Nazi because of him raising his hand when we didn't see
The
the
full
full where he was like telling to, you know,
heart.
from his heart, like my heart goes out to you. He was thanking everybody, you know, like and embracing the people. And the same people have been supporting jihadi Nazis.
Mm. Where this salute was in total with full motivation and full
Exactly.
intent being had, and somehow that's excused or ignored, or we won't talk about that, or the fact that Obama and Hillary and everyone else
And
has been caught
Macron.
in that same pose because it's always a snapshot of a wider motion, right?
And we know that Elon is awkward, you know, he jumps, it's
He was,
part of his person.
and that day he was particularly fidgety. I mean, the
Yeah,
social
yeah,
media was hilarious, putting what's his name? Sorry, Baron Trump
yeah, yeah,
right next
yeah,
to
yeah.
Musk, and
Rigid,
just one was
yeah,
ADHD and the other one was incredibly restrained and awkward, and both two different sides of the awkward coin, I guess. But he was
exactly.
so fidgety and agitated that day that he was jumping around, and I think if anyone actually bothered to take this seriously would have seen that this was a non-issue, but they had to turn it into one. But it's great because it opened the doors again to, okay, you want to talk about real Nazi salutes, let's bring some real ones, shall we, where the intent behind it is as the Nazis were.
Exactly,
But
which is
again,
if it's Hezbollah, if it's Hamas,
yeah,
if it's the Houthis, and they have an allegiance to Hitler. I mean, it's not, you know what's amazing for me? It's like they never kept it a secret.
mm,
I mean, they found Hitler dolls in Gaza in children's room. The Mein Kampf is one of the best sellers in Arab countries. So it's not like a well kept secret. Anyone who wants to listen to any Hamas leader speech will hear it. I mean, it's not even encoded, you know, it's out there.
it's
It's
overt. Yeah,
out there.
it's overt.
So we know they're hypocrites.
Mm,
Um, we know they're not only hypocrites, they're enablers. And that's what's really scary. It's because if they were only hypocrites, we would say, okay, they're hypocrites, but they're enabling, you know, what is happening all over. Uh,
yeah.
but you know, listen, Elon Musk is He's a nerd. He's a genius nerd. Okay, now it's true. He's a nerd. You see, he's not. He's not like a singer or an actor or somebody that's used to be on stage and in front of a mass of people, you know. So he's acting like
Oh
the
yeah,
nerd he is, and
yeah.
anyone who, and like you said, it was, they were waiting for for an opportunity. It's not like they stumbled on it and it's like they were looking, searching for it. And also to is linked to, I mean, his biggest sin is he's helped Trump, I think, quite significantly.
Mm,
Personally, I think
mm.
that Elon taking over Twitter and having X now. And it's so ridiculous and hilarious that the guy that put $84 billion for free speech will be called a Nazi. I mean,
I think it was about 44 million he paid, and apparently he was
44.
44 million.
44. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
but
I don't know why I came on.
he
Well,
was
yeah, you're right. You're right.
criticized for ridiculed. Let's say before he was ridiculed for
Yeah.
overpaying. And
Yeah.
what a joke! You're an idiot. How blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And yeah, the same individual was now criticized for being a Nazi. It's just a joke. And I mean, I think they're targeting him because he's getting a little bit more obtuse and overt in his support for certain and his disdain for certain politicians. So this whole idea of him meddling in the UK's affairs. I mean, he's clearly hostile to Keir Starmer, and why wouldn't anyone be? I'm sorry, but the
Now,
man
because
has.
he has a huge platform,
Mm. And it's
and
his overt support for the AFD. The AFD is what's really got a lot of the Germans and everyone in a bit of a panic because they see that as an allegiance to a neo-Nazi group. It's not a neo-Nazi group. We won't go into the AFD, but it's not. Maybe there are curious elements inside it, just like there are curious elements inside Marine Le Pen's party, and there's elements, possibly rogue elements, in every political party. But to call AFD a neo-Nazi party is an absolute misnomer. It's stupid, but they had to. His support for Alice Vidal, can't remember, EIOA. His support for her, hosting her on a platform, giving her a platform, and the AFD a platform where no media will give them one. I mean, this is the outrage. This is the second biggest polling party in Germany right now. They're pushing 19% support at this point. And some polls might put them up at 22. They are polling number 2. And no one will touch them. No mainstream media will give them a voice. They are not permitted to appear on any media anywhere. No one will invite them anywhere. And so you are seeing a real distortion of democracy in this country, in Germany right now. And Elon Musk comes out, offers his support. And of course, they have to tackle him. So I think lining up the Nazi salute with his support of the AFD is totally intentioned and totally on
exactly.
purpose to undermine the AFD and possibly them influence the German elections. The irony is that he's influencing things. No, they are. They're trying to create a narrative of who he is and who the AFD are
The
so they
problem
can
is they
undermine
don't
the AFD.
they don't control the narrative anymore.
Well,
Uh,
they're trying, and amongst the
no,
youth,
no, we know they don't anymore. I mean, Trump was elected because, I mean, the result of the last election
yeah,
is
yeah,
the evidence that they're not controlling the narrative.
mm,
And so Elon Musk is the enemy you have to take out
mm.
because
Oh yeah,
his platform is a real threat to their power.
hmm
Okay, to what was once their power, which is
yes, yes.
like we see it disintegrating. I mean, we see the ratings on CNN, MSNBC, and everything. They're becoming irrelevant. With also the podcast, podcasters' influence. But he's a very, for them, he's the enemy number one. It's not even Trump anymore. It's Elon Musk.
Mm.
You know, because he's opening his platform to every opinion. And this is something that cannot be accepted by these people, because truth might come out. So God forbid that the truth might come out. But anyway,
Mm,
I found
mm.
that to be what a distraction,
Oh, totally. For
It was,
distraction, it's a distraction right when obviously we
yeah,
had those stabbings in Germany last
yeah.
week. And
But
what's that?
exactly. So it's and Elon Musk, that's what he's talking about. That's another subject that really upsets them because he shares a lot of these incidents. He shares a lot of accounts like Vicegrad and
That's a few.
others, and a few others that are already have been, you know, tackling this subject for years, but they didn't find a voice. I mean, they didn't find a tool, an outlet, and Elon is opening that for them. So that's another reason because
Mm,
we're seeing. I mean, we know. Let's go now to the, to the jihadi attacks that we've had in Europe for the past. I got some statistics, by the way,
mm,
some numbers. I was looking for it yesterday just to see throughout the years. I mean, France seems to be one of their favorite Iran, you know.
mm.
I don't find it. But you're going to talk about the Germany, I mean, what's happening in Germany because you're
Well,
there.
yeah, look,
So,
I think we have look, let's just talk some facts. I'll give you some
yeah,
facts. The United Kingdom for the moment, or although not technically in Europe anymore,
yeah.
but the United Kingdom has what 40,000 plus on their watch list. That's just the extremists that are on their watch list, not the ones that haven't even caused a stir. So these are the ones that they are currently surveilling. We're not even talking about the ones they're not surveilling. Clearly, like Ruta Kabana, who was the
I
Rwandan
know.
boy. I mean, you want media manipulation. How's this for a media manipulation? He goes and stabs children at a dance studio, and the horrific
Virtue.
stories, the horrific accounts that have come out. I mean, I
Uh,
can't read those without
yeah,
wanting to be
I am.
sick. He stabs them, comes out, and the media shows us an image. And this is obviously with the complicit, that the police are complicit. They gave them the picture of him as a schoolboy, a young, innocent schoolboy, not the mugshot that was released recently.
Can you believe it?
No, and no, well, yes, because how bad would the riots and protests have been had that image come out? That's what they were worried about. Look what happened when they released an image of him being a schoolboy, and then they tried to pass him off as Rwandan. He's not a Muslim. He was a Christian. They played on his Christian belief and family
Yeah.
background to distance any connection to
So
radical
it's
Islamist terror
that.
attack, when in reality, as it was within the hour, Keir Starmer knew. He knew it was in that boy's flat. He knew about the Al Qaeda manuals. He knew about ricin, how to make ricin. His parents. I mean, the fact that the boy had been referred to, the anti-terrorism hotline, if you like, Prevent in the UK, 3 times
Three
referred,
times.
3 times,
3 times they
and
came to his house. That was a
the
visit.
parents, and there were issues with the parents. The parents were frightened. The parents were terrified of their own son because of the things he was saying of what he wanted to do at school to other students. And the
I think
police,
they didn't catch him with they didn't expel him from school because he had
no,
knives. He had a knife or something. I
yes,
don't
yes.
remember, I think. The thing
But
is
what
that
we're seeing an epic. Okay, so there's a few things. There's an epic failure somewhere along the way in policing. Clearly, intelligence and policing is failing in the UK here right now. And the worst bit is the complicit nature of the police, the media, and the government to cover up, to not stir social tensions yet again, like the grooming gangs. And what we're seeing is a situation now where the information now that comes out through the trial, of which in the trial he said he doesn't regret, he's happy he did what he did, which was just, he was removed from the dock and said he was glad he did what he did, which is just astounding. I can't imagine, I can't be in that courtroom, and how do you stay sane? And then to disclose and publish to the world what actually happened. I mean, I don't know what is going through your head when you stab a child 122 times, when you're trying to hack off their head of a baby who's screaming for life, and the poor babies were trying to get away. They were trying to get away. They were,
Octo-
and he went back to finish the job.
October 7th. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. No, no, no. This is it. Yeah.
they killed parents in front of their children.
Yes, yes.
And but the thing, I read a super great piece by Stephen Desley on the Spectator yesterday that was called how did he call it? Axel Ruda Kubana should have never been free to kill. And he calls, they're accusing Amazon now. I mean, because Amazon sold him a
I
knife.
mean, that is
Uh,
possibly the most
yeah.
ludicrous thing. I mean,
And
again, deflection and diversion. Next.
exactly, he calls it the law of displaced culpability. And I think he's right. It's like they always find another
Reason.
reason not to say the real reason. There's a lack of will, clearly, a
Because,
lack of political will and courage. Because listen, in France, we had two teachers who were basically almost beheaded. Okay, one by an Afghan and the other one by somebody. I'm gonna tell you where from. Another refugee. Huh? They're all refugees. Huh? But Samuel Paty was the first one, you remember, and Samuel Paty was a history teacher who one day um, had shown a picture of the caricature of Charlie Hebdo of Mohammed. Okay, to cover the topic of free speech. And one of his students told to her family or whatever, and he was by a Chechen refugee. The second one, Dominique Bernard, was called by an Ingush. It's also like
It's
a
Azeri
region
that way. Yeah, yeah.
in
English,
Russia.
English.
Yeah, Igush. Refugee also, another refugee. Dominique Bernard was a French literature teacher. And this attacker claimed allegiance to ISIS. The one, they call them the lone wolves. They're
Uh,
not
that-
lone wolves.
They're always talking about lone wolves, and you know what? I've studied terrorism, Linda, and there is a situation where lone wolves do become. They are a reality, but they have been indoctrinated and they have been radicalized online. They don't just become lone wolves; they actually have
Exactly.
been made into what they are. And anyway, what I wanted to say is. What was the excuse given? Because in Germany, it doesn't seem to matter who is doing the killing. Now, there's been a few attacks in Germany, but most recently, obviously, Magdeburg, the Christmas
Yeah.
market, which was a Syrian, I think, if that was correct, driving the car. And there was another stabbing, and I can't remember now, in another town, where was another Syrian that was involved in that stabbing. And
And,
last week was an Afghan. Okay.
and there was a policeman also, no,
Yes.
in Germany.
The worst part, of course, is the deliberate intent to target children. So it was going to a kindergarten to target children, to murder children. This is where we have a problem, and the media will paint it as someone who's mentally ill. In fact,
Exactly.
the mental illness
Instability,
justification or defense.
instability, instability. The response, okay, the response from our leaders right away, it's Islamophobia. We have to be aware of Islamophobia, okay, because all these guys have one thing in common.
We all know what the thing in
We
common is,
all know.
but
Let's
apparently they
not
all,
think,
Linda,
but
they all have apparently they all have mental illness. They are all
exactly,
mentally unstable. It's a defense to murder, and that is it.
exactly. So our leaders, after each their speeches, okay, long speeches, words, words, but never no actions.
Mm.
They always come want to enact new laws. You know, they're gonna legislate the problem, and it's never done. And the authorities, which mean the police and everything, mental illness, mental instability, and the media, mental instability, and the victimhood card. These poor refugees, okay, these poor refugees. So there is a link between this refugee migration policy and because I mean the refugees are part of the immigration policy because it's under the statute of asylum or whatever it is. And then you have the homegrown, okay? So
The
you have
homegrown,
to,
yeah, yeah. The homegrown, I think in Germany, what we're seeing is definitely the earlier that you said, the former, which is the new migrants coming in, because we don't seem to have, or Germany at the moment, from record, doesn't seem to have any homegrown terror per se. That is very much a fundamental British problem. The British have a big, big problem with homegrown terror, homegrown radicalization, kids who are born in Britain of migrant parents, same in France, born in Belgium, but they are radicalized by external forces somewhere. Whether the external could be the mosque, the external could be social media, the external, wherever it might be, they're being radicalized within. Germany doesn't seem to have that yet. I have not seen that. It seems to be new migrants coming in that seem to be caught having
yeah,
done these crimes. That doesn't mean it won't. It just means that the nature of the type of immigrants Germany has had in the past, which is largely primarily from Turkey. Turkish working population has been massive. Yes, they're Muslim, but they are far more, shall we call them, westernized Muslims in
yes,
Turkey. So this has never been an issue, and it doesn't appear to be an issue of their offspring. So the children of these Turkish immigrants have seemed to have integrated reasonably well. Reasonably. I won't say entirely because there's still some problems, but in terms of integration, I think Germany's done it a little bit better. Not so much with the new migrants coming in since 2015. But I think the UK, Belgium, and France have a serious issue.
But I want to tell you something. In France, in the beginning, in the early immigration, like the 60s, 70s, from Algeria, Morocco,
Well, the former colonies.
from the
Yep.
former
Yep.
colonies, we didn't have that problem. We didn't
No.
have this issue. They wanted to integrate and to assimilate.
And I
They
would say
wa-
that's the same in Britain. So with the
okay,
Pakistani
exactly.
immigrants that
It's
came,
it's it's it's
same
the
thing.
third. I think it's really the third generation mostly, and it's young people. And personally, I see a link between the moment Al Jazeera
Mm,
was broadcasting, was allowed to broadcast in our countries. There is a link.
mm,
So there is that, plus the Muslim Brotherhood working hard at um, creating, I mean, isolating the community. Usually, migrants tend to go and live where
of course.
other people from their background, it's normal. They want to be
Hmm.
close to people who have the
You
same
could speak.
cultural background, the language, and the traditions and custom. It's normal.
Mm.
Um, we see it in America, Chinatown, uh,
You'll see
the
it in
Bronx.
Australia. I grew up in
You,
Australia. We have
yeah,
not had any of these issues with
yes.
immigration or with multicultural.
So you see that people, it's normal. The thing, what happens is that the MB, the Muslim Brotherhood, took in charge the radicalization on the ground. Okay, by their charity work,
Mm-mm.
their social service organization and association, educational, and also so all these people they come, they live in this area. Okay, they come and move to that area where people from their background are, and they go to the mosque, and there, that's where the preaching is happening.
Mm.
And it's not hard to know about that because you've got ex-Muslims or Muslims that have left, that have left the radicalization process, that are talking. And they're telling you, I remember this guy who was talking about his family, his own family, and he described slowly the process, with his mom. First she covered her hair, and then she wore the veil, and then she wore the whole mask, and then the gloves. And he said, I was 6, 7 years old, and they were teaching us to hate the Jews, to kill the Jews. I mean, all over Britain. It's not even hidden. I don't understand because the police has the information because
And
many
can I add, and I need to say, a lot of that information comes from the Muslim community itself,
itself
who
exactly.
who are too frightened to confront their own leaders, so they will go to the police looking for help,
Exactly.
saying these guys are doing this. Yeah.
And they get the door shut at their face. They are the first victims, by the way, of the radicalization. So it's impossible. We know that the Muslim Brotherhood has been present in Europe and in the US since the 50s, 60s. Okay, we know what is their ultimate goal, and they're doing it very smartly because they don't want their people not to mingle with the others. No, they want them to look like perfectly integrated and everything. But they are doing the work undercover. But the police knows. In France, they know. After the Bataclan, I remember after the Bataclan in France, when people are suspect of having any ties to the ideology. I'm not going to say to terrorism itself. They call them fichés S, which mean they're registered, somewhere. Hundreds of fichiers work at Roissy Airport in the luggage. How do you call them? The luggage
Baggage
handlers,
handlers, baggage
baggage
handlers.
handlers, the security guys who check your bags and everything. Bus drivers. And we had some people who came on TV after the Bataclan and they said that they had, I'm talking about unions who had complained that some drivers refused to drive a bus if a woman had driven it before them. Okay, carpets and prayers all over the depot, where they store the bus. Uh, and you're on the bus. The guy has the beard of a jihadi. I mean, a beard of a. He doesn't even look at you because you're a woman. They're driving buses, and I have a prediction. Okay, one day one of these guy can just drive a bus into a building. When because we never know when the decision to go to the act, you know.
The psychological threshold is very, very short. It's a long process to radicalization. It's long but quick, right? There's a few steps that are involved. Most people don't cross that threshold. Most can be pulled back, right? Or they pull themselves back. Those who cross over, you'll never get them back. And those who commit the act, it's very, very, there will no way you can rehabilitate them back out once they've made that crossover. The psychology of terrorism says that, yes, that threshold is very swift, but once it's made, what creates it is very hard to pinpoint. They haven't worked out what that is yet. And it's so different because so many who are on the path self correct. Somewhere along the way, pull back. You can say fear or whatever it might be, but they pull back. Those who commit the act and cross over that very, very, very slim threshold into the act of terror, there's no going back for them. They're willing to die.
Yeah,
They
but
don't do life. No, but
they're,
even the ones who are getting radicalized and think they're willing to die, they don't get to that point. They can pull back, but it
yeah,
really.
because a few these guy that I'm telling you about,
Mm,
uh,
mm,
uh, he had a great conversation. I saw him on, I think it was on what's his name? Um, he has a podcast. He invited a couple of them. His name escapes me, but he was gonna go. He wanted to enroll
mm,
and to go and to the battle, like they
mm.
call it the battle. He wanted to go to the battle, and he went. He was already at university, and he started reading books. Other than the Quran or
Mm.
his his study.
Are you talking about
His
radicalization
yeah,
texts? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, the radicalism.
And it's the
No, no,
videos, isn't it?
no, no. He started reading other books.
Oh, this is de-radicalization process,
Dicary,
right?
and he says his parents. He doesn't talk to his parents, and so he left completely, and he's speaking out. And when he was asked, do you talk to your parents? The podcast is Heretics. The name of the podcast,
Oh, Andrew Gold.
Andrew Gold,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Heretics, and he said, I don't want to speak to these people. Call them like that. I don't want to
Mm,
speak to the. It's not even they for sure don't speak to him because he's the enemy now. But he refuses to speak. So I've seen two or three, and Yasmin Mohammed, you know her, Yasmin Mohammed too.
mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
know her.
She's from
She,
Egypt. Yep.
yeah, and she was married to a guy
Mm-hmm,
that was.
mm-hmm.
I mean, they married her to an Al Qaeda guy. But these people, if you talk about Jasmine Mohammed or Mossab Hassan, the son of one of the founders of Hamas, or these people that I've seen on Heretics and other podcasts, you'll never see the mainstream media platform them, and you wonder why. Why? Because these are the people. Because if you don't want it to be Islamophobia, maybe this is the people you should speak to.
Exactly. So
Okay,
people who don't understand Islam can say, actually, it's not Islam, it's extremist versions. And here are Muslims who are here to teach you that we're not like this. This isn't us, and we're warning you.
exactly,
We are not like them. We're more like you than we are like them. Maybe that would exactly eradicate Islamophobia, but maybe that's not what they want, Linda.
exactly.
They
And
don't want that.
you remember when I mean Douglas Murray, I think is really has is the light in that dark tunnel for me, because first he's so eloquent and articulate and brilliant and knowledgeable on the subject, because it's a subject that is very, very dear, because he understands the threat it is to us, to all of us, to our civilization, to our way of life, to our values, to our own life. And he's considered by these people as some kind of extremist. No, I mean, it's a joke, you
A
know?
joke, Linda, is a woman from Sudan called Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who went to the Netherlands and now in the United States is considered an extremist for simply explaining and trying to inform people. I mean, after she saw her own, what is it, Theo van Gogh, the director who was murdered in the Netherlands, and she said, she warned the Dutch people, she tried to warn people, I come from this culture, you don't understand it. And instead of listening to these voices, the powers that be poo poo it and say, no, no,
No,
we're
no,
not going to.
because they are considered, the oppressed and oppressed. They're still stuck there in the 60s. There has been all of them. I mean, they're stuck in the 60s, and they have not evolved with what's been happening since then.
Mm,
Christopher Hitchens, he
he
was right
warned.
when Islamophobia is going to be their tool to shut you down. And Yasmin Mohammed talks about that.
Mm.
Elika Lebon talks about that. A lot of them. I mean, there's so many to name. There's so many, I mean, not, unfortunately, not a resounding majority because most probably are scared. I want to believe that. I'm not sure. And I want to tell you why. There is a woman that lives not far from me, and I've known her for many years. She's Muslim. She's a nice woman. She's Muslim. She's from Morocco. She never was wearing, covering her head. And suddenly I see her covering her head, you know. And she talks to me that she goes to the mosque and that she's met so many people, and because they do it, you know, like I tell you, they attract them with like, come, you've got a community. Um,
So,
you
isn't
know,
that, is she a lonely woman?
I think she's a lonely woman.
That's the target. Alienated young people, lonely young people, looking for friends, looking for a community, looking for an identity to fit in somewhere. That is, they are your classic A radicalization, ripe for radicalization. That's it. And it's the same across all ideologies, not
Yes,
just
yeah,
this one.
exactly.
All radicalization or joining cults. If you look at the operations of cults
Yeah.
and how cults recruit and who they recruit and who gets sucked into a cult, it is exactly the same tactics, psychological tactics that are occurring. So I would argue that's why I asked you if this woman is lonely
Yeah.
and if she's looking for connection somewhere. And this is giving her that succor, that comfort and connection that she is lacking in her real life somewhere, unfortunately. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. I think if people find their faith or find comfort in something positive and it brings them joy and security and comfort, that's a positive thing. The problem is, as you said, she's gone from this to this. What might come next?
I don't think she'll ever be violent. I'm not gonna, you know, ever
Mm.
assume that because I don't think it's in her personality really. But and she's also not young, you know, young
No, I
woman or whatever.
understand.
But now I know that she looks at the world through different lenses.
Mm.
That's what scares me more than anything. And the thing also that's really scary is that the Muslim Brotherhood push them to be active in politics or to go and vote, to be very, you know,
Mm. Mm.
to be a voice, and we know who they vote for. We know. We know who's their ally, you know, the radical leftists, because they have the same goal, is to destroy um, our values and the Western culture and its values, you know, that they have this common enemy. At the end of the day, they will, I mean, God forbid they'll ever succeed. There will be, like in Iran, you know, they will be eliminated on the spot. But because that's what happened in Iran when the revolution started, it was not the Islamists, it was not the Ayatollahs, it was the young
Left leaning parties. It's
the young Marxists, and
yeah.
that's why they sent a big mistake from the West. They sent the Ayatollah in hope that he will know that he will take over that the protest and that God forbid communism won't the USSR won't have any, you know, another ally. That was their only. I think that the West, for the past since World War II, has made so many mistakes. You know,
It's not.
uh,
I'm not going to say mistakes. They're intentional choices for short-term gain, and that's always been their case. We find an ally. I mean, remember who was it? Rumsfeld about
yeah,
Hussein, Saddam Hussein.
yeah,
He's a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. In other
yeah.
words, we know their brutality. We know, but we pick a side. I mean, we know the US was funding Iran and Iraq in their war. I mean, it's common knowledge. It's all about asserting their dominance, their control, their power. Um, and unfortunately, they've left. It's called blowback, right? The whole Afghan involvement with the Mujahideen is blowback that gave rise to Bin Laden and Al Qaeda and their training. I mean, where were they trained? By the CIA?
But the thing is, when Commandant Massoud, you know, I don't know if you know who he was. He was the head of the Mujahideen, which was had nothing to do with Al Qaeda because they fought the Russian.
Mm,
Okay,
mm-mm.
and
Initially,
they,
Russia was the enemy, right?
yeah, they fought
And of
the.
course, but who was training them and funding them? It was the
No, no,
US.
no, no. But I'm
In
not talking. No, I'm not
Yeah.
talking about the Mujahideen. I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda was the US, the CIA, and
Mm,
everything,
mm.
funding them and everything. And the Mujahideen were warning the CIA and I mean, they were Commander Massoud was warning, that these guys are not Afghans.
Yeah.
Okay,
The Saudis.
most of Al Qaeda members were not. Pakistanis, Saudis. I mean, there were a lot of from Pakistan because Pakistan has a very important role in the radicalization also. But for me, the head of the snake, I know that the word says it's Iran.
Yeah, you said last time.
I think that Iran power is like, I mean, the Mullah's power is crumbling in front of our eyes.
Mm.
Frankly, Qatar funds the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar funds the radicalization. Qatar is the home of the propaganda outlet. We discussed it before, right? Al Jazeera. Qatar is buying influence in politics, in
Mm.
academia, and that's what I don't understand. I don't understand why we have a problem, not me, our leaders denouncing Qatar. I mean, Saudi Arabia and all the rest of the Gulf states have an issue with Qatar because they know
Mm. Mm.
they are funding the radicalization. Qatar, no, please, Qatar funds Hamas, who shelters Hamas leaders. The Hamas leaders were, I don't know if you remember, on October 7, they were
Mm.
rejoicing,
The
watching
the
the
bloodbath.
the bloodbath. And Qatar is brought as a mediator in the ceasefire talks, or Egypt. So there is a lack of political will and political courage. I don't know what their calculation is. That's all I want to know. Because what is it? Why are we getting people? Are we letting in people like from Chechens, that Russia puts in jail? Okay. I mean, Chechen, Afghans, Syrians, only men, and they're always, I mean, this wave of refugees, it's always men between the age of 18 to 30, 34. So all the NGOs and the humanitarian associations who help them along the way, which probably are funded by Qatar as well, they're talking about humanitarian crisis. And there might be a humanitarian. I'm not going to say that there's not. In Syria, there's been a civil war forever. I'm not saying that there's not a humanitarian. But where are the women and children? Because they should be the first one on the boat.
Well, the women and children in Afghanistan have disappeared, for one. They have been eviscerated from public life, so they're not allowed to sing, to speak, to show their face. I mean, this is where the women are. That's Afghanistan. Iraq, I mean, let's talk about Iraq, which has given
Yeah,
rise to ISIS. I mean, the
yeah.
complete and utter destruction of Iraq. I mean, Iraq passed a law allowing girls as young as 9 to be legally married. This is a country that had 18. Under Saddam Hussein, 18 was the legal age of marriage. And now we have a government in Iraq that we don't talk about because apparently there's no war in Iraq anymore, and that has somehow stabilized. But what is causing that stability? A government that thinks a 9-year-old can legally be married to a grown ass male. There is so much that's wrong. And
But
these people, but the thing I want to know, and we have to sort of wrap it up, but I want to look at what is it about our governments? Why are they complicit? They must know this. It is clearly obvious
but
who's
listen,
coming,
but listen,
who's
you're talking about Iraq, okay?
that was just an
Allowing
example of
no, but allowing, but we have preachers in France, in the UK, who are saying it. We're saying that you can marry a 9-year-old, that you can rape a girl that's not Muslim. It's allowed. They're saying it, okay, publicly. They're not saying it in like closed doors, secret reunions. There's videos of it. And on my what the fuck moment, because we have the what the fuck segment, there is this Afghan refugee that stabbed the refugee worker, one of the refugee worker that was taking care of his case, followed him home or found out where he was living and stabbed him. And the authority are looking for what the motivation are. And I'm saying, what the fuck? That's my what the fuck of the week.
oh, you got a good one.
No, the motivations.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost as they don't want, we cannot unsee what we see. We cannot unhear what we hear. You can try to disguise it and to dress it up and yeah, but these poor migrants, it's a social issue. No. It's fanatic ideology. issue, and nobody has the will to fight the ideology. That's what scares me, because no military war will ever resolve this issue. We can, I mean, we've seen in Afghanistan, we've seen in Iraq, we've seen even with Gaza and everything. We can't, how do you fight an ideology with weapons? It's not working. We have to fight the ideology, and we need to cut the head of the source of its funding and its propagation and its Qatar. For
It's
me,
yeah. I I think you can't fight an ideology with weapons. That's what I think I would have thought the Afghan and Iraq war showed. You can't fight a war on a verb, or a war on terrorism. How do you fight that war? It's and I think things were bad post 9/11. It looked like things were heating up and getting really, really quite scary in the early 2000s. But I think we're in a very, very dangerous place right now, where we have so many new people, undocumented. We don't even know who they are, half of them.
right.
We don't know where they've come from, with an agenda, with support. It's almost as if they're setting the groundwork for a massive conflagration between the domestic home native populations and these immigrant
It's
populations.
scary.
And
That's what. No,
that
but that's scary because we feel the tension. I don't know if you. I do.
I do.
Because like you, we follow the events, so we are aware of what's happening and how people are feeling.
I
Because
need
I
to
read comments, you know.
I need
But
to. What I wanted to say is, think it's a deliberate attempt to get us geared up for a civil conflict, and I don't know why. I don't know what the intention is. Why do you want to see this happen? Because, of course, how much longer will the domestic or home population put up with before they do explode? They did after Southport, and look what they did.
mm,
Um, I'm going to give you my what the fuck, and then this one had me just absolutely floored. A German woman, okay, this was a 20-year-old woman from Hamburg, okay, was raped. Okay, so she was gang raped by 9 people, if not more. And she was 15 at the time when this incident happened. She called the rapist a disgraceful racist pig and a disgusting freak. And apparently those two terms are defamatory under German law. The girl, the woman, was given a harsher sentence than the rapist. So she called him a pig. And because of defamation laws in Germany, the hate speech and defamation laws, she was given a harsher sentence for what she said than the rapist who raped her. That's
I,
my that is
yeah.
my that is
What
my
the
what
fuck?
the fuck. I can't, there is no what the fuck. I just sit here thinking to
I read,
myself,
I read about it, and I was like, but you're talking what our leaders are. So, some people say they're scared of the Arab streets. Some people think because they're in business with some countries that are, I don't know or maybe they're iced. I don't know what's happening. I really don't know. But if they keep thinking that we aren't aware, because like when you see the declaration of Starmer or Macron or all these people, they really try to cover it. I mean, not just to cover it up, but in a way that's almost insulting to our intelligence, like there's nothing to see here. Okay, there's nothing to see. I mean, they covered the grooming gang. I mean, I had that term. I've said it before. Or what you just said. Or the police in Magdeburg that recently declared that it might not be a terrorist attack. And the latest incident, mental instability. The police, not the police, the people who are investigating. I don't know. Anyway, let's wrap it. Well, we have so many things. I mean, this subject would be done over and over and over.
I know. We've
And
definitely done it, but it is something that's time. It's happening. It's on the continent we live in. It's a daily
but,
occurrence
but
now,
but the problem is Elon Musk.
and we'll leave it at that. On that note,
Bye,
Linda,
bye.
bye.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you. Bye, bye, bye,
Bye,
Linda.
bye.